So today we will take a look at how Campus Pack podcast works. And here is a brief overview of what is a podcast. Podcast is actually can include video. So podcast is both audio and video. The podcast is a digital media file or a collection of files distributed online via RSS feeds. So that make it differentiate from the digital audio or digital video online. So because of this RSS feeds, visitor can subscribe to the podcast. So after the subscription, new new podcast will be automatically downloaded to their mobile devices or iTunes if the user use iTunes to subscribe the podcast. Does that make sense, Kim? Okay, great. So, because of this kind of use of a podcast, because the podcast has that RSS feeds, a podcast can be a very useful and powerful supplementary tool for blended or online courses. Instructor can use podcasts to do all sorts of things, such as they can post a short lecture providing clarifications on difficult concepts, or short how-to-do videos, a module or unit summary, reviews, a weekly welcome message, news clippings, guest lectures, and interviews. I saw some instructor using a weekly podcast to provide students a summary of the last module's skills and also introduce the next module's topic. And also, some instructor use a podcast to provide words of encouragement to students in both audio and video formats. Now, Campus Pack podcast makes creation of podcasts very easily for instructors. If you have already been using Campus Pack Wiki or blog, Campus Pack podcast is one of the tools available to Campus Pack building blog in ELMS. Kim, are you currently using any of those Campus Pack tools, such as Wikiblog?
No, I haven't used the only thing that I use right now. What we're using, what is it? Wimba class.
Oh, okay. So you have experience with Wimba, but not with any Campus Pack. Okay. Campus Pack has a set of tools. Now, Campus Pack podcast is one of those tools. I encourage you to take a look of Campus Pack wiki or blog. Lots of instructors use wiki and blog to have a collaborative projects for students to work together. Campus Pack podcast, since you never use Campus Pack wiki and blog before, Campus Pack wiki and blog are providing students with some text-based space for students to work together on documents. Students can post their reflections in their blog, and also students can work together. The whole class the whole group can work together on one document. Instructors are able to track any edits on these documents, and there are history features for instructors to track any changes by different students. Now, the Campus Pack works a similar way. The only addition with Campus Pack podcast is that Campus Pack podcast enables creation of audio files directly on the page. Campus Pack give you an audio recorder directly inside the tool, so you can just record your audio right on the page. So you can also not only podcast audio, but you can also put your video there. We'll take a look how it works. Now, I want you to take a look of this. This is how Campus Pack looks from students and from both students and instructors' perspective. You see there's a player there that is audio, and you can also enhance your audio with other types of content. Another feature is that with Campus Pack podcast, you can enable students to create their own podcasts so that students can learn from each other. Every student's content can be a learning resources for other students, and also students can comment on each other's episode, each other's entry. Um, Kim, have you ever created any online audio for your students before in your course?
Yes, I have done a couple of podcasts using Jing, Jing Pro, and then for the ELMS course, for the course that I teach, I also did little audio. I guess they're just announcements, so using one of the tools in ELMS.
Okay, that's great. Jing and Wimba Voice to also enable you to create audio right on the page. The only difference is, as I just mentioned, the audio or video you created before, they are just the audio and video. They are not really a podcast. With podcast, students are able to subscribe because of that RSS feeds. That's the difference between a regular online video, a regular online audio from podcast. We will take a look how it works. Now, I'd like to show you one examples, one of the project I gave to my students in the course I'm currently teaching. So I'm going to share my desktop. Give me 1 second. Okay. Kim, Lee, Lauren, are you able to see my desktop? Okay, great. Now, I have a digital media project in the course I'm currently teaching, and where students create a podcast on a chosen topic related to web design because I'm teaching a web design course currently. And students also required to include the PowerPoint and audio transcript together with their podcast. Now here's their project. This is their podcast, and everybody can listen to each other's podcast on the page. And here is their PowerPoint. So they just embed the PowerPoint together to supplement their podcast. And here students comments on each other's podcast. And this is another student work. So they have a podcast there, and they have PowerPoint. Now, this is another student work. This student, he did something different. He provided the podcast in a video format. So instead of using audio, he just have a voice over PowerPoint here. He embedded this voice over PowerPoint on the page. Now, here is my instruction for the podcast assignment. You can see that this instruction is enhanced with both audio, text, and graphic, and also PowerPoint format. So this is one of my project I ask my students to do using this Campus Pack podcast tool. Now next, let's take a look how to create a podcast using using this tool. Now I'm going to log into ELMS. To create a podcast, you just go to any content area inside your ELMS space, and then go to the Edit View. Now from the Select drop-down menu, select Campus Pack podcast feed. Now you can see from the drop-down menu, you can see two tools you can use. One is Campus Pack podcast feed. Another is Campus Pack podcast episode. If you the Campus Pack podcast feed enable you to create a container for a series of related episodes. For example, if you have weekly lectures, uh, podcast feed, which can contain several podcasts, several episodes. Now, if you only want to create one and a single podcast, you use Campus Pack episode. But right now, since I want to create a set of episodes, so I'm choosing the first one, Campus Pack podcast feed. So I choose that one and then click go. And then click submit. I'm going to put type a title for this podcast. Okay, here. And then determine how are you going to deploy this podcast. Um, Choose a single copy if you want a whole class to share one podcast site and everybody is able to see each other's post. This is under deployment. There are several options. Single copy. Single copy is for the whole class to share each other's podcasts. Now choose the one for per group or one per person. If you want each user, each of your students, and each group have their own private site, which means you don't want people to share their podcast. Everybody has their own podcast site. They can put as many podcasts they want, but they are not able to see each other's podcast. You are the only person who is able to see that student's contribution. So this is a private communication site between you and the students, or between you and the group. So here I'm just picking the first one, single copy for the whole class. And then click add. Now here's that podcast site. Now you can see this site is visible to everybody in this class. You can also double check the permission to make sure everybody is able to contribute. Now under authors, you see everybody is an author in this site, which means they're all able to create their own podcast. If you want to see the detail of the permission, you can click this customize this button to see what on earth an author can do. Here's everything they can do. They can view their own episode, and also they can view any episode, which means they can view each other's episode. And they can create episode, but they can only edit and delete their own episodes. So under permission, this permission is very flexible. You can create allow all types of permissions for different user and different group. Now let's create a new episode here. So I'm call this podcast intro. So introduction. Now here you can see you have several ways to create this podcast. You can create the audio directly on the page, or you can upload any existing audio or video file, or you can link to any audio or video on the web. So here I'm just using this built-in recorder to record my podcast, my audio here. Just hit the record button, and you just speak. So after I'm done, click finish, stop, and then play this podcast. This is how you create your podcast. It's very simple, right? Now, beneath this recorder, you can see there's a text box for you to type any other types of content you want to go with that podcast. And you can embed your transcript also. And also you can use any graphic, any picture you want, anything in this text box. After that, just click save. Now, here's my first podcast. You see, this tool give you a very nice controller on the page. And then beneath that the controller, you see the text information. So students just click the play button to listen to your podcast. Now here's the place for viewer to put their comments. So this is the first way. You just record your audio on the page, which is very simple. Any question, Kim, so far?
No. I mean, I'd have to go back and talk to this again to really get all of the details, but I mean, it is very straightforward in terms of the actual steps.
Yeah, it's very straightforward. And on this page, you can create as many podcasts as you want just by adding new episode. For example, I will add another new episode. I call it Chapter 1. So every chapter, you may have a set of podcasts. So I add another new episode. But this time, instead of using the built-in recorder, I'm going to just upload the existing video instead of audio to this site. So I just click upload media and browse to my MP4 video here. Now if you want to upload any multimedia content, for audio MP3 works best. For video MP4 works best with this tool. So I upload MP4 here. Here's a video. So let me click save and let's take a look how it looks like to students. Now here you can put any text information, any other content to go with this video description, or you can also provide the transcript for the audio in the video for your students. Let me save this. Now here's my video. So if I click play, here's a video I created using Camtasia. This is all the other stuff, all the comments and other information. And the students can have a threaded discussion using comments area here. So I have two episodes here. One is audio. This audio I created using the built-in recorder. Another is a video I created by browsing to existing video. Now I'm going to add another episode. Now this time, instead of upload video, I'm going to upload the existing MP3 audio. I use Audacity to create this audio. I have this piece, very short piece audio here. I just browse to the audio MP3, it's MP3 file, and then click save. Now, so here's my MP3 audio. So you can see there are several ways for you to add your audio or video into this podcast feed. Now, let's talk about the main difference between the podcast and audio video. The main difference, as I just mentioned, is this RSS feed. Students can subscribe to your audio or video you put here. Once they subscribe, they don't need to log into ELMS again to get your new episode. Once the student subscribe to this podcast feeds, any new episode will be automatically downloaded to their iTunes or to their mobile devices. Let's take a look how it works. So if students want to subscribe to these feeds, they just click those two buttons. So they can click RSS feeds button here, or they can click iTunes button. But right now you see those two buttons are grayed out. This indicates that the RSS feeds here are private feeds and only available to the students enrolled in this course. Um, Private feeds required authentication, which means each student can create their own password, and each student needs to set their own password, so that not everybody outside your course can access to your podcast. But to make the subscription much easier, subscription much easier, you can change the private feed to a public feed by going to permissions